God bless you and your family and your friends and all. May have good health and a lot of success and happiness. We continue our discussion of the common course prescribed for the UG students of the colleges of University of Calicut. The course is Zeitgeist, and we know that Zeitgeist, the course has four modules. Module 1 on the Indian Constitution and secularism, Module 2 on sustainable development or sustainable environment, and Module 3 on gender, and Module 4 on human rights. And we have discussed all the four articles in Module 1. Should the assassin of Gandhi be killed? Preamble to the Constitution of India, Toba Tek Singh, and Freedom by Rabindranath Tagore. And all these live stream lectures and other lectures can be just seen in a playlist in the channel. Just go back to the playlist and listen to the lectures. In all the lectures, there is a very detailed discussion of the biographical details of the authors. Similarly, a very detailed word by word reading of the text and analysis, and of course the questions and answers, discussion of the questions and answers. Similarly, we have also completed module 2 on sustainable environment. There are three articles: Chief Seattle's The End of Living and the Beginning of Survival, and Guy Patel on Killing a Tree poem, and the wonderful short story by Isaac Bashevis Singer titled Slate the God. We finished all these three articles in Module 2, Sustainable Environment as well. Like I said, there are very, very detailed discussions and, of course, word by word reading and analysis of the prescribed chapters and stories and poems, and questions and answers are also discussed. Just go to the playlist titled Zeitgeist and ensure that you have a very, very clear idea about all the articles, that is the essays, the poems, the short stories, and make sure that you study very well and get a very good score in your examination. Remember, life is what you make of it. Your life, your success, your happiness, your peace is what you make it. So work hard, just believe in yourself, get the blessings of your parents and teachers and all the people you come across, and trust upon God, be systematic and go forward, complete your tasks, and be a successful, creative, productive citizen of the world. Okay, now we continue our discussion of Module 3 on gender. Yesterday in the live streaming session, two live streaming sessions we had yesterday, and in yesterday's session we discussed the beautiful essay by Adrian Rich. Beautiful, I said, because it has been written in a wonderful way, in very simple English, in a very argumentative way, with a comprehensive analysis of what happened in human history. That was yesterday's analysis of the essay by Adrian Rich, the woman, lesbian, and feminist. Today we continue our discussion of the second article in Module 3 on gender, and it's a wonderful short story by the American story writer and feminist Kate Chopin. So let us just discuss the short story, The Story of an Hour. In fact, all the articles in the Module 3 on gender shows the problems encountered by male, female, and transgender. So yesterday we saw the feminist essay by the radical feminist Adrian Rich. And that essay was, of course, about what happened in the history of human beings in the case of women, how women are suppressed and oppressed and marginalized in a male-dominated society, and how they can be empowered. That was the topic of yesterday's essay by Adrian Rich. Today, it is about marriage. The second article, a short story by Kate Chopin. The author's name is Kate Chopin, and as you understand, Kate Chopin is an American feminist. American feminist. She is very actively involving in the empowerment, liberation of women, and all the problems of women are just discussed in the articles, essays, and stories. So this is in fact a very, very beautiful short story, the story of an hour. It's about marriage. It's about the institution of marriage. It's about what happens to the husband and wife. It's about what's happening in marriages. Okay, we believe that marriage is just a wonderful thing. People think that there is, of course, so much of honey and milk in marriage. There is so much of joy and pleasure in marriage. But what is, in fact, the institution of marriage? That is being analyzed in a very, very creative and critical way in this short story, The Story of an Hour. So at this juncture, I will draw your attention to the famous Malayalam film in which we have Nivin Pauly as the one among the leading actors. I think the name of the film is Bangalore Days, in which you see the very feelings of people about marriage. Okay, the attitude of youngsters on marriage, the attitude of middle-aged people on marriage, the attitude of people who have lived many years in marriage. And I'm drawing your attention to the characters of the characters. I don't remember the very name of the characters, but they are the parents of Nivin Pauly, the most significant character in the film. That is one of the lady is Kalpana, and the gentleman is, of course, Vijay Raghavan. So you will see that the father, that is, of course, Nivin Pauly's father, just vanishes or disappeared for some time. And people are very, very much worried. Where is he? Okay. And we also understand that the wife, that is Kalpana, also suffers from some kind of wheezing, some kind of suffocation. All right. So the question here is marriage suffocation? Are people stifled, or are people just suffering in marriages? Okay, so here we understand that maybe marriage is a kind of it is slavery sometimes. It is, of course, just affecting our individual freedom. Maybe it is a kind of an encroachment into the individual likes and dislikes of people, right? So this story of an hour, is a very powerful maybe representation of what marriage in reality is. Okay, so before going into the story, let us just look at the biographical details of the narrator, that is feminist writer Kate Chopin. So even before that, I will say that the story of an hour is about a husband and wife. The name of the husband is Brentley Mallard. And the name of the wife is Louise Mallard. Okay, we have some more characters. They are, in fact, minor characters. One is Josephine. Josephine is Louise Mallard's sister. Okay, and another character is Richard. Richard is a friend of Brenly Mallard. Okay, so husband and wife, Brenly Mallard, husband, Mr. Brenly Mallard, and Mrs. Louis Mallard. It is the story of the husband and wife, the story of an hour. Now, we will look at the life biographical details of Kate Chopin. We know that Kate Chopin is a feminist. She writes about the freedom of women, the problems of women, and how women suffer in maybe marriage. Sometimes marriage is a suffering for, it's a painful experience for some women. Often it can be like that. So that reality is very, very seriously and in of course a very funny way, a humorous way. Kate Chopin discussed that. Okay, so once again, I wish you all the best. Good day to all of you. Let us just look at the biographical details of Kate Chopin. Kate Chopin is presently considered as one of the pioneers of American feminist writing because of her unconventional lifestyle and novel ways of portraying women's changing identity in the 19th century American literature. Okay, so this is about the life of Kate Chopin, the feminist. She has always been, in fact, very, very unconventional in her life. Unconventional. What do you mean by unconventional? So she has of her writing, okay, is unconventional. A pioneer of, what do you mean by pioneer? A pioneer is a person who is at the forefront of a movement. She is in fact, one of the leaders of the feminist movement in United States of America. So she is a pioneer, somebody who begins something for the first time, pioneer. Okay, so Kate Chopin is considered to be the pioneers of American feminist writing because of her unconventional lifestyle. So she has an unconventional lifestyle. What do you mean by conventional lifestyle? A conventional lifestyle is a lifestyle which is conforming to the tradition. Okay, your parents lived a life, your great parents lived a life, maybe their ancestors lived a life, and if you live in the traditional way, paying attention to the customs, conventions, rituals, beliefs, and practices in a society, in a country, in a community, you are leading a conventional life. But Kate Chopin led an unconventional life. Unconventional life is a life which doesn't care for the conventions of the society, the traditions, the customs, the practices, and the rituals of maybe a society or the community. And she, of course, portrays or presents women's identity in a different way. Okay, and now let us continue. We are in page number 56. We are discussing biographical details of Kate Chopin. In her characterization, she focused on the startling discrepancies between women and the men in their lives in unconventional ways. So the life of a man and life of a woman is different. Maybe we understand that men are more independent than women. Why is it so? And we know that the independence of men and the dependability of women is often the result of the practices in the society, what is happening in the society. Okay, and in other words, how women would act and feel their way lives, not dictated by societal norms and male expectations, was the familiar terrain of her long and short fictions. So here it's about the fiction of Kate Chopin. So Kate Chopin is writing about yeah, maybe literature, women's literature. She's presenting women who are not just objects of the likes of men, who are not objects of the maybe a patriarchal society. So to maybe from that point of view, we understand that she is questioning the conventions, and hence we can see that she is of course unconventional in her lifestyle and in her writing. Okay, so I request all of you to of course just see to it that you study very well. So please ask your friends to join if they haven't joined in this live streaming session. Okay, it is from Zeitgeist, and we are in third module on gender, and it is a very important chapter. Not just this alone; all these chapters are very important, and unless and until you study very well, you're not going to have a good score. So join the classes and ensure that you have a very good score in your external examination and internal examination. Okay, so I request you to inform your friends that the class is going on, and I also request you to of course just like and comment the lecture if you find it useful. Now we move on to the next passage, in which we have more about the life of Kate Chopin. Kate Chopin Flaherty was born in St. Louis of the United States on February 8, 1851, to a well-to-do couple, Thomas O. Flaherty and Eliza Faris O. Flaherty, the parents of Kate Chopin. After the death of her father in an accident when she was 5 years old, she was raised in a household that consisted of her mother, grandmother, and great grandmother. This is very, very important. Look at that. Her father passed away in an accident. Thereafter, she lives with her mother, grandmother, and great grandmother. So, this family background should have helped her to grow into a feminist. She lost her dad in an accident. Now she is being cared for by her mother, grandmother, and great grandma. So the presence of the females of the female members of the family should have influenced her, and she should have understood the fact that even women can run a family. No doubt, women are as capable as men, or maybe you can say that sometimes women are more powerful, energetic, smart, and efficient than men. But often they don't get the freedom, they don't get the opportunity to use their talents. Okay, so she is growing up in a family where there are more female members, or rather only female members: mother, grandmother, and great grandmother. This is very, very important. After her graduation, she married Oscar Chopin, son of a Louisiana cotton planter. She too gets married. We know yesterday we saw Adriana Rich. Adriana Rich got married. She got married to a professor from Harvard University, had 3 sons, later got separated. Here again, we have Kate Chopin. She got married, and her husband is a cotton planter. He is a planter. Before and after the marriage, she was an unconventional nonconformist who made friendship with the slaves of the family, smoked in public, and bathed open on the beaches. This is very, very important. Okay, so our society, no matter whether it is Kerala society or society in different parts of the country, India, it has just given us roles. Our society has, of course, told us, maybe traditionally, by convention, how should a girl dress herself, how should a woman dress herself, when should a woman go out, what should a woman do, okay, what a woman shouldn't do. Okay, there are things like that. And look at this. Kate Chopin is unconventional, non-conformist. What does it mean? She never cared for tradition. She doesn't care for tradition. And what did she do? She smokes. Okay, maybe it is, of course, something shocking to people in Kerala. Maybe we are shocked that there is a lady who is smoking, right? And she used to smoke, and now look at this, she is making friendship with slaves. There are some people in our society who doesn't talk to beggars. There are some people in our society who do not talk to poor people. Okay, and there are people who just make friendship with of course big people alone. All right, that is big shots, rich people. Okay, and here we have Kate Chopin, who doesn't care for the very familial, societal, community or religious, financial, economical background of the person. She's making friendship with poor people. She makes friendship with slaves. And look at this. She's smoking in the public. She is also bathing open on beaches. This is something that is very, very strange during this period. That is, she lives between 1851 and 1904. We are used to maybe bathing in the bathroom. But Kate Chopin, 100 years ago, went to the beach and bathed herself in the beach, in the open air, open beach. And this is unconventional, and this is being right. Okay, thank you, Shikari. Okay, for your comment. You really inspire me. Thank you so much. Right. Thank you very much. Right. I'll continue. I'm talking about Kate Chopin, the feminist, and let us just continue. Okay, so now let us learn about the financial background of the author Kate Chopin. A financial crisis in 1879 and the untimely death of her husband in 1883 left her with 6 children. My God, look at that. 6 children. She was a feminist, okay, and she was married. She gave birth to 6 children. And I would say maybe it could be the misery, it could be the difficulty in her life that made her a feminist. It could be the problems. It could be the problems of marriage. It could be the problems of bringing up kids that made her a feminist. 6 children, dire economic crisis, and to overcome the crisis, she decided to take up writing professionally. Now she has a family, she has mother, grandmother, great grandmother, 6 children, husband no more, father no more, financial crisis, and she decided to become a writer. And she thinks that maybe as a full-time professional writer, she is going to get some income from her literary writing. She began her career with short fictions, short stories, and essays. And in 1890, At Fault, her first novel was published. Okay, so what is the first book of Kate Chopin? That is At Fault. In the second work, The Awakening, published in 1899, Chopin controversially anticipates some of the major concerns of the feminist movement. Now, in her second book, The Awakening, she is writing about feminist movement. What is feminism? Feminism is a movement, a political, philosophical movement of women to liberate themselves from a patriarchal society, a male-dominated society. Okay, so the oppression, suppression, and victimization of women in the society must end. And Kate Chopin is writing about the experience, the painful experience, and the problems of women in her novels. And it is very much obvious in her second title, The Awakening, published in 1899. The examination of unhappy marriages, the question of divorce in a rational, unemotional manner, and the theme of love outside marriage concerns ahead of the times formed some of the major themes of her novels. Very important. And again, question for examination. What are the themes of the fiction of Kate Chopin? Kate Chopin's fiction deals with three important themes. First theme, unhappy marriages. Why is a marriage unhappy? Why is marriage honey and not honey and milk? Why is why do we have pain in marriage? Why do we have problems in marriage? So the unhappiness in marriages is discussed in her fiction. Similarly, she is discussing the question of divorce. Should two people marrying once continue lifelong as a couple? Should they be committed to each other all the time? Of course, marriage is a commitment to the husband and wife, mutual commitment. So, should it last until they die? So, divorce is being discussed in her fiction. And the third is, of course, the love outside marriage. Okay, there is a husband and a wife, and what about the relationship of these two with people outside marriage, extramarital relationships? These are the three themes of the fiction of Kate Chopin. Remember, it will be, of course, helpful for you when you answer the questions on The Story of an Hour by the American feminist Kate Chopin. Now, let's continue. The hostile criticism concerned ahead of the times formed some of the major themes of her. No, the hostile criticism with which the novels were received had a shocking effect on Chopin as the publishers cancelled her future contracts. Now, remember, this is very important. Kate Chopin is writing about divorce. She is writing about extramarital relationship. She is writing about, of course, unhappiness in marriage. And it is very obvious that she is blaming the society. She is blaming the patriarchal society. And she doesn't want the suppression and oppression of women to continue. Please understand that in most of the families during the 20th century and the 19th century, husbands were irresponsible. Husbands were drunkards. They go just what is it, roaming around, drink liquor, and waste all the money. And of course, they come back and make a lot of problem at home. That is the kind of one of the problems for. So the kind of irresponsibility, lack of care and concern and consideration for the wife and the children. And wives, women in the family often had to go out for work. They had to go out for work. How can a lady, how can a mother, how can a wife go out with 6 children? She may be having a baby with her. So she is writing about all these problems in the society, and because of that reason, her fiction was very, very vehemently, blisteringly attacked by the hypocrisy, or rather the hypocrite, the pretentious American society, rather the American middle class and the upper class. All right, and she just could not be a successful writer. Like her publishers cancel her contracts. All right, she lived only 5 more years and died of a cerebral hemorrhage on August 22, 1904. However, it was posthumously that she came to be regarded as an important writer and a champion of the rights of women. So posthumously, what do you mean by posthumously? After death. So Kate Chopin wrote about the problems of women, pain and suffering in marriage, problems created by men, okay, divorce, extramarital relationship, all that she wrote about. But her fiction was not awarded or rewarded was not properly paid when she was alive, and she died a poor death. But posthumously means after death, she became important because many other feminists who read her fiction afterwards understood that she is writing about realities, is writing about the problems of women. And such an issue is discussed in the story we have to study, The Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin. We continue to the smaller paragraphs at the bottom of the page 56. Besides the two novels, Chopin authored about 100 short stories and some essays. Most of them were about the Creole society of the South of America. So you have a new term, Creole society. What is a Creole society? What is Creole language? A Creole society is a society which is in fact the result of maybe a group of people who come to a colony. Say, for example, you can say that a Creole society is a third generation society. And what about the first generation? The first generation is a generation that comes to a colony from a foreign land. Say, for example, British people comes to the Indian subcontinent, or French people come to the Indian subcontinent, or French people go to the West Indies, or they go to Africa. So generation one, British people, French people, Dutch people, Portuguese people from Portugal, from Britain, from Netherlands comes to a colony, Asian or African or any islands. They live there. They live with the natives there. British people live with Indians. French people live with Vietnamese people, Philippine people, or even West Indian people. Similarly, Australian people, French people, British people live with Africans in maybe any of the country of Africa. So that is generation one. Generation two is children born to the marriage of a British and an English. Similarly, a British and a Vietnamese, or a British and a Korean, or a French and maybe an African. And they develop a new language, new culture, and all. All right, the natives do not know the language French. Natives do not know maybe Indian languages, English. English is the language of the British people. Portuguese is the language of the Portuguese people. French is the language of the French people. But Indians, they speak many languages. Vietnamese people, they speak Vietnamese. All right. So generation one, native plus foreigner. Generation two, children born to them. Generation three, children born to those children. Okay. So British, Indian, children again, right? So generation 1, 2, and 3. And such a society is known as a Creole society. So such Creole society we have in India, in West Indies, in Africa. All right. So here we have about Kate Chopin. Besides the two novels, Chopin authored about 100 short stories and some essays. Most of them were about the Creole society, that is, descendants of European settlers in West Indies, America, or France, in United States of America. അപ്പോൾ ബ്രിട്ടീഷുകാർ ഇന്ത്യയിലേക്ക് വന്നതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഒരുപാട് വിദേശികൾ അമേരിക്കയിലേക്കും വരുന്നുണ്ട്. ബ്രിട്ടീഷുകാർ ഓഫ് കോഴ്സ് അമേരിക്കയിലേക്ക് ചെന്നു. അമേരിക്കയിൽ ചെല്ലുമ്പോൾ അവിടെ റെഡ് ഇന്ത്യൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. അതേപോലെ ബ്രിട്ടീഷുകാർക്ക് പുറമെ ഫ്രാൻസിൽ നിന്നും പോർച്ചുഗീസിൽ നിന്നും യൂറോപ്പിന്റെ വിവിധ ഭാഗങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് നമ്മളുടെ അമേരിക്കൻ കോണ്ടിനെന്റിലേക്ക്, തെക്കേ അമേരിക്കയിലേക്കും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ നോർത്ത് അമേരിക്ക, ഓൾറൈറ്റ്, ആൻഡ് സൗത്ത് അമേരിക്ക, വടക്കേ അമേരിക്കയിലേക്കും തെക്കേ അമേരിക്കയിലേക്കും ഒക്കെ ഈ യൂറോപ്യൻ രാജ്യങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നും ബ്രിട്ടനിൽ നിന്നും എല്ലാം ആൾക്കാർ കുടിയേറി പാർക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. അവരുടെ സെക്കൻഡ് ജനറേഷനും തേർഡ് ജനറേഷനും അനുഭവിക്കുന്ന പ്രശ്നങ്ങൾ ആണ് നമ്മളുടെ കേറ്റ് ചോപ്പിൻ്റെ ലിറ്ററേച്ചറിൽ പ്രതിപാദിക്കുന്നതെന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. മോസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ദം വർ അബൌട്ട് the Creole society in south of America. She is one of the pioneers of women's writing in America. Literature about women like Lalitambika Antarjanam, Sarah Joseph, okay? Maybe about, of course, maybe you can say that Arundhati Roy, okay? About, feminists. These are all feminists, right? Sarah Joseph in Malayalam, Arundhati Roy in India, English. Okay, then Mahashweta Devi in West Bengal. All right, they are all women writers in India. Similarly, you have Virginia Woolf, you have Simone de Beauvoir, you have Adrienne Rich, Kate Chopin, etc. are feminist writers in America and Britain. She is one of the pioneers of women's writing in America. Critics at present appreciate her skill and artistry, particularly her striking use of psychological realism. Psychological realism. What is psychological realism? Realism and psychological realism. What is realism? Realism is what you see in the real world. നമുക്ക് ചുറ്റും യഥാർത്ഥ ലോകത്തിൽ നമ്മൾ നേരം വെളുക്കുന്നു, നമ്മൾ ഇവിടെ സൂര്യൻ ഉദിക്കുന്നു, പുഷ്പങ്ങൾ പൂവിടുന്നു, കിളികൾ പാട്ടുപാടുന്നു, സഹോദരി സഹോദരന്മാരും ദമ്പതികളും അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും മക്കളും ഒക്കെ അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും ഇടപെടുന്നു. അത് ഒരു കുഞ്ഞുണ്ടാകുന്നു, ആ കുഞ്ഞ് വളരുന്നു, വലുതാകുന്നു, സ്കൂളിൽ പോകുന്നു, പഠിക്കുന്നു, ജോലി കിട്ടുന്നു. ഓക്കെ, അതെല്ലാം റിയലിസം. ആൻഡ് what is psychological realism can be in literature, realism can be in painting, realism can be in music, realism can be in art and sculpture. യഥാർത്ഥ ജീവിതത്തിലെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ അതേപോലെ സാഹിത്യത്തിലും കലയിലും സംഗീതത്തിലും വരുമ്പോൾ that is realism in art, literature and maybe sculpture and all. But what is realism in psychological realism? Psychological realism is realism in psyche, realism in mind. ഞാനിങ്ങനെ നിങ്ങളോട് സംസാരിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുമ്പോൾ എൻ്റെ മനസ്സിൽ എന്തെല്ലാം നടക്കുന്നുണ്ടാകും, എൻ്റെ മനസ്സിൽ ചിന്തകളുണ്ടാകാം. ഞാൻ നിങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ച് ചിന്തിക്കുന്നുണ്ടാകാം, നിങ്ങളുടെ റിസൾട്ടിനെ കുറിച്ച് ചിന്തിക്കുന്നുണ്ടാകാം, എൻ്റെ ക്ലാസ്സിനെ കുറിച്ച് ചിന്തിക്കുന്നുണ്ടാകാം, ക്ലാസ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് മനസ്സിലാവുന്നുണ്ടോ എന്ന് ചിന്തിക്കുന്നുണ്ടാകാം. അയ്യോ മനസ്സിലായില്ലേ പിള്ളേർ എന്ത് ചെയ്യും, എൻ്റെ കുട്ടികൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്യും. ഓക്കെ, ഓർ okay, maybe I would be upset again about what's going to happen after this session. ഉച്ച കഴിഞ്ഞ് എനിക്ക് എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു കീറാമുട്ടി പണി ഉണ്ടാകാം, തലവേദന ഉണ്ടാകാം. ഓക്കെ, ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള മാനസിക വ്യാപാരങ്ങൾ വളരെ യാഥാർത്ഥ്യത്തോടു കൂടി നമ്മളുടെ ബോധ മനസ്സിലും ഉപബോധ മനസ്സിലും അബോധ മനസ്സിലും നടക്കുന്ന സംഭവങ്ങൾ, ചിന്തകൾ, ഭയം, സന്തോഷം, ഓക്കെ, അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഓരോ കാര്യങ്ങളും അതേപടി പ്രസന്റ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ you have psychological realism. All right, so she is one of the pioneers of women's writing in America. Critics at present appreciate skill and artistry, particularly the striking use of psychological realism. Symbolic imagery. Symbolic imagery. What is symbolic imagery? Symbolic imagery is you have some images. What is an image? An image is a word picture. Word picture, like what could be said, right? You can say that turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. എന്താണ്, പക്ഷി പിടുത്തക്കാരനെ കേൾക്കുന്നില്ല. പക്ഷി പിടുത്തക്കാരനെ കേൾക്കുന്നില്ല എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ എന്താ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുക? പക്ഷി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ വെറും പക്ഷിയല്ല, നമ്മൾ ഓരോരുത്തരുമാണ്. പക്ഷിപിടുത്തക്കാരൻ ആരാണ്? ദൈവം. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പൊ ദൈവം പറഞ്ഞത് നമ്മൾ അനുസരിക്കാതിരിക്കുമ്പോൾ പക്ഷിപിടുത്തക്കാരന് പക്ഷിപിടുത്തക്കാരൻ പറഞ്ഞത് അനുസരിക്കാതിരിക്കുന്നു. The falcon is a bird. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Symbolic language. എന്റെ കാതിൽ അലയ്ക്കുന്നു നിത്യമാനുഷ രോദനം, എന്റെ കാലിൽ തറയ്ക്കുന്നു മനുഷ്യ തലയോടുകൾ. That is symbolism. എന്റെ കാതിൽ അലയ്ക്കുന്നു നിത്യമാനുഷ രോദനം, എന്റെ കാലിൽ തറയ്ക്കുന്നു മനുഷ്യ തലയോടുകൾ എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ വെറുതെ മനുഷ്യ തലയോടുകൾ കാലിൽ തറയ്ക്കുന്നു എന്നല്ല അർത്ഥം. ലോകത്തിൽ അത്രമാത്രം അക്രമവും അരാജകത്വവും പടരുന്നു എന്നാണ് അതിനർത്ഥം. Okay, so that is symbolism. So Kate Chopin is also using symbols in her writing, symbols that speak. I just say there is red color. I make a painting with red color. And what does it imply? Red can be a symbol for dangerous. Red can be a symbol for my love. Okay, so red is just implying many meaning, danger, love. Okay, so things like that. So she is, of course, writing in symbolist imagery and sensuous themes. Sensuous themes are themes that appeal to our senses. നമ്മളെ പഞ്ചേന്ദ്രിയങ്ങളിലേക്കും ബാധിക്കുന്ന തീമുകൾ ആണ് sensuous themes. Maybe about seeing things, maybe about hearing things, feeling things, tasting things, just sensuous themes. Kate Chopin is writing about. That's the greatest style of Kate Chopin. We continue our discussion. The feminist movement lauds, L-A-U-D-S, lauds means praise, praise, പ്രകീർത്തിക്കുക, സ്തുതിക്കുക. Lauds Chopin's portrayal of characters like some of the important characters of Kate Chopin, Edna Pondlear in The Awakening, and the critical interrogation on the restraints tradition placed on women. Tradition is placing restraints on women. Okay, so പാരമ്പര്യം, നമ്മളുടെ കുടുംബ മഹിമ, നമ്മളുടെ ഒരു എന്താ പറയുക സൊസൈറ്റിയുടെ ആ പാരമ്പര്യം, ചരിത്രം, നമ്മുടെ ആചാരങ്ങൾ, അനുഷ്ഠാനങ്ങൾ, ഇതൊക്കെ നമുക്ക് ഒരുപാട് പ്രതിബന്ധങ്ങൾ നമ്മുടെ സമൂഹത്തിൽ വെക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. So please read. I think you have read Aduklayil Ninna Arangathekku of B.T. Bhattathiripad or Ridumadi of Premji. If you read even Agni Sakshi of Lalitambika Andarjanam, if you read all that, you will understand how women are just restrained, controlled in our families and societies. So Kate Chopin is writing about how women were forbidden, controlled, and victimized in United States of America. Now let us understand what's the theme of the story we study, the story of an hour. The story of an hour, originally published in Vogue magazine, which is in fact even in circulation right now, on 6th December 1894. The year is 1894. 1894 as The Dream of an Hour. Original title of the story of an hour was Dream of an Hour. Very important for you. Remember, where was it published originally? It was initially published in Vogue magazine, and it was originally titled Dream of an Hour, and it was published on 6th December 1894. Okay, a brilliant exploration of the concept of marriage. So what is the story of an hour about? The story of an hour is a brilliant analysis of the concept of marriage. എന്താണ് വിവാഹ ജീവിതം, എന്താണ് വിവാഹം, എന്താണ് കുടുംബ ജീവിതം. All right, now through the universal and timeless theme, marriage is a universal theme. Why? People all over the world, Asia, Africa, Antarctica, America, or anywhere, Australia, or anywhere, everywhere people get married. So marriage is a universal theme. Through the universal and timeless theme, okay, in the past, present, and future, there is going to be marriage that is timeless. അനന്തമായിട്ട് മാരേജ് എന്ന് നടന്നുകൊണ്ടേയിരിക്കും. എന്തെല്ലാം ഗുണമുണ്ടെങ്കിലും ദോഷമുണ്ടെങ്കിലും people get married. Okay, and some people, of course, get married, some do not get married. All right, some get married and of course they just get separated. All that is going on, and it will continue to go on. Through the universal and timeless theme, the story also seeks an understanding of the meaning of gender roles. So gender roles, what do you mean by gender roles? The roles given to us based on our sex. What should a boy do? What should a teenager do? What should a man do? What should a husband do? What should a daughter do? What should a son do? What should a wife do? What should a son-in-law do? Daughter-in-law do? Priest do? Nun do? All this is gender roles. gender roles. Okay, and through the universal and timeless theme, the story also seeks an understanding of the meaning of gender roles and a proper definition of what it means to be free and happy. So, the story of an hour is about how we can be free and happy. The startling and anti-climax with which the story is concluded also throws light on the meaning of life and death. The story is also about life and death. The story is about marriage. And we have an anti-climax there. What is anti-climax? You know what climax is? What is climax? Climax is the part of the story, the incident in the story in which you reach at maximum emotional upheaval. The hero suffers from a lot of problems. Macbeth has killed Duncan. Now he is in a lot of problem. Okay, Hamlet, he is sure that his father is killed by his uncle and he wants to take revenge on his uncle. So his decision to take revenge on his uncle is, of course, and what is happening thereafter is climax. All right. Similarly, in this story, you have the climax. What is the climax? Death of Brindley Mallard, the husband. Death of Brindley Mallard. Louis Mallard, Bharia, and Brindley Mallard, husband. One day, it is said that Brindley Mallard died in a train accident. That is climax. And anti-climax. Anti-climax is the opposite of the climax. That is, Louis Mallard is reported to be dead, and if he is again reported to be alive, that is anti-climax. All right, let us look at the story of an hour. So this story is about the marriage, joy and freedom in marriage, the startling anti-climax with which the story is concluded also throws light on the meaning of life and death. Louis' thoughts, like Edna is the heroine in the novel Awakening, reflect the moods and emotions felt by many women who sought personal freedom. Okay, remember, ഒരു പെൺകുട്ടിയായിട്ട് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു സ്ത്രീ ആയിട്ട് ജനിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ കല്യാണം കഴിക്കുക എന്നുള്ളത് എന്താണ് ആത്യന്തികമാണ്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അത് ഒരു ഒഴിച്ചുകൂടാനാകാത്ത സംഗതിയാണെന്നാണ് നമ്മളുടെ സമൂഹത്തിൽ എവിടെയായാലും, കേരളത്തിലായാലും തമിഴ്നാട്ടിലായാലും കർണാടകത്തിലായാലും ഇന്ത്യയിലായാലും ആഫ്രിക്കയിലായാലും അന്റാർട്ടിക്കയിലായാലും ഉഗാണ്ടയിലായാലും അമേരിക്കയിലായാലും ഫ്രാൻസിലായാലും നമ്മളെ സമൂഹം നമ്മളുടെ തലയിൽ വെച്ച് തന്നിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു സങ്കല്പം. അങ്ങനെ എല്ലാവരും കല്യാണം ചെയ്യുന്നു. Okay, you get married, all right, and thereafter you understand what is marriage. Maybe in the films and in literature it is portrayed that marriage is something marriage is somewhere you have always honey and milk, തേനും പാലും ഒഴുകുന്ന ഒത്തിരി സന്തോഷം മാത്രം നിറഞ്ഞു നിൽക്കുന്ന വളരെ കാൽപ്പനികമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു സങ്കല്പമാണ് വിവാഹം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പ്രണയം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരുമിച്ചുള്ള ജീവിതം എന്നൊക്കെയാണ് നമ്മൾ പലരും ചിന്തിക്കുന്നത്. ബട്ട് ഇൻ റിയാലിറ്റി ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് നോട്ട് ലൈക്ക് ദാറ്റ്. ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് നോട്ട് ഓൾവേസ് ഹണി ആൻഡ് മിൽക്ക്. ഓക്കെ, സോ here you have a husband and wife. The name of the husband is Brindley Mallard. The name of the wife is Louis Mallard. And let us see what's happening. Okay, how do one feel when she understands that her husband is dead? ഒരു സ്ത്രീക്ക് ഒരു ഭാര്യയ്ക്ക് അവരുടെ ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചു എന്ന് അറിയുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ സൊസൈറ്റി, സമൂഹം നമ്മളോട് പറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്ന ഭാര്യ ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നെഞ്ചത്ത് അടിച്ച് വിലപിച്ച് കരഞ്ഞ് സങ്കടപ്പെട്ട് അവളുടെ ശിഷ്ടകാലം ഒരു വിധവയെ പോലെ ജീവിക്കണം. അതാണ് നമ്മൾ പാരമ്പര്യമായിട്ട് കൺവെൻഷനായിട്ട് നമ്മുടെ സമൂഹം. ഒരു പക്ഷേ എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യത്തിന് മുമ്പ് രാജാറാം മോഹൻ റോയിയുടെ കാലത്തിന് ശേഷമൊക്കെ നമുക്ക് ഒരുപാട് മാറ്റങ്ങൾ വരുന്നുണ്ട്. there are reformers, but even now, okay, ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഭാര്യ വിധവയായി കഴിയുന്നതാണ് ഔചിത്യം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നല്ലത് എന്നുള്ള ഒരു സങ്കല്പം ചില സമൂഹങ്ങളിലും ഉണ്ട്. ഇനി ഭാര്യ മരിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഭർത്താവും അതേപോലെ തന്നെ കഴിയുന്നതാണ് നല്ലതെന്ന് ഓക്കെ ചിന്തിക്കുന്നവരുണ്ടാകാം. പക്ഷേ ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചു കഴിയുമ്പോൾ ഭാര്യയുടെ യഥാർത്ഥ മാനസികാവസ്ഥ എന്താണ്? ശരിക്കും യഥാർത്ഥത്തിൽ എത്ര ഭാര്യമാർ ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചല്ലോ എന്ന് വിചാരിച്ച് സങ്കടപ്പെടുന്നുണ്ടാകും? അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പണ്ടാരടങ്ങാനായിട്ട് അയാൾ ചത്തു കിട്ടിയല്ലോ എന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുന്ന ഭാര്യമാരും ഉണ്ടാകാം. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഏതെങ്കിലും ഭാര്യ മരിച്ചു കഴിയുമ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ ചിന്തിക്കുന്ന ഭർത്താക്കന്മാരും ഉണ്ടാകാം. Alright, so this story is about the real feelings of men and women, husbands and wife, when they know their partner, their husband or their wife is no more. So this is reality. This is psychological realism. And Kate Chopin is very, very effectively representing the reality in marriage, the problems in marriage in this story, the story of An Hour. Very simple and easy to understand. So remember, you have 4 important characters. Number 1, Louis Mallard, wife, young lady in the story. Number 2, Brently Mallard, Brently, Brently Mallard, husband of Louis Mallard. Number 3, Josephine is sister to ലൂയി മലാഡ്. നമ്മുടെ കഥയിലെ ഭാര്യയുടെ അനിയത്തിയാണ്, സഹോദരിയാണ് ലൂയി മലാഡ്. ജോസഫൈൻ. ലൂയി is the wife. And next character is Richard. Richard is a friend of Brently Mallard. And now one more point you have to remember. Brently Mallard is out on maybe he's traveling, he's out, he's not in the house, and his wife Louis Mallard is waiting for him to come back. And you have Louis Mallard, she has a problem, she is a cardiac patient, so you have to be very careful when you tell her something sorrowful, so also something very joyous, because even very small things can move you very emotionally and physically, and it can lead to another cardiac arrest. So the wife in the story, Louis Mallard, is a cardiac patient. Now let us look at the story of An Hour. I'll read, listen carefully. Knowing that Mrs. Mallard was afflicted with a heart trouble, great care was taken to break to her as gently as possible the news of her husband's death. Okay, so Mrs. Mallard's husband is dead, and everyone is very careful to inform her that her husband is no more because she is a cardiac patient, a heart patient. ലൂയി മലാഡിന്റെ ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചു എന്ന കാര്യം വളരെ കരുതലോടുകൂടി അവളെ അറിയിക്കണം. കാരണം ഈ കടുത്ത വേദന, വേർപാട്, പ്രിയതമന്റെ വേർപാട് അവർക്ക് സഹിക്കാൻ കഴിയാതെ അവർ മറ്റൊരു ഹൃദയസ്തംഭനത്തിലേക്ക് പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അത് വലിയ ഒരു ദുരന്തമാകും. So one has to be very careful. It was her sister Josephine who told her in broken sentences, veiled hints that revealed in half concealing her husband's friend Richards was there, too near her. It was he who had been in the newspaper office when intelligence of the railroad disaster, train accident was received, with Brently Mallard's name leading the list of the killed. A lot of people died in the railroad disaster, train accident. In the list of the dead is husband of Mrs. Mallard, that is Mr. Brently Mallard. It is confirmed by her husband's friend Richards, who is in the newspaper office, confirming that Louis Mallard's husband is no more. He died in the railroad disaster. He had only taken the time to assure himself of its truth by a second telegram. So Richard, Brently Mallard's friend, is confirming, മരിച്ചു എന്ന ലിസ്റ്റിലുണ്ട്, പക്ഷെ ഒന്ന് ഉറപ്പാക്കിയേക്കാം. So he is sending a second telegram to the concerned authorities and officers and ensures that Brently Mallard, husband of Louis Mallard, is no more. He had only taken the time to assure himself of its truth by a second telegram and had hastened to forestall any less careful, less tender friend in bearing the sad news. Now, Richard, friend of Brenly Mallard and Louis Mallard, comes to Josephine, Louis Mallard's sister, and both of them tell Louis Mallard that her husband died in a railroad disaster, a train accident. And now she did not hear the story, as many women would have heard the same, with a paralyzed inability to accept its significance. What is paralyzed? Okay, paralyzed is just going numb. You lose the energy to move your hand, your leg, your body is patchakadam or paralyzed. So, with she did not hear the story as many women would have heard the same, with a paralyzed inability to accept the significance. She wept at once. When Louis Mallard heard about Brindley Mallard's death in the railroad disaster, she cried. She wept at once with sudden wild abandonment, very shocked, wild abandon, being abandoned, forsaken in her sister's arm. She's just falling down into the arms of Josephine. She's crying. When the storm of grief had spent itself, she went away to her room alone. She would have no one follow her. So now she is sad. She cries in the arms of her sister Josephine, and thereafter she goes to her room in her home. Nobody follows her. There stood facing the open window a comfortable, roomy armchair. So we have a scene from the room of Louis Mallard. She is standing against the window, and opposite the window is the armchair, a roomy armchair. What do you mean by roomy armchair? Roomy armchair is a chair which is big enough, spacious enough. Into this she sank, pressed down by a physical exhaustion that haunted her body and seemed to reach into her soul. She sits there, sad, in her armchair in her room. She could see in the open square before her house the tops of trees that were all aquiver with the new spring life. So she is looking out through the window, and in the distance she can see the top of trees and the branches and leaves of trees, and all the leaves and branches is vibrant with spring. Aquiver means vibrant, energetic, okay, dazzling and shining and gleaming in the spring season. The delicious breath of rain was in the air. It rained maybe in the night, it rained in the evening, a previous evening or night, and there is so much of dampness, water, and energy, freshness in the air. In the street below, a peddler was crying his wares. You know, peddler. Who is a peddler? A peddler is a person who is selling vegetable, fruits, and other things. So just like in that Mohanlal Srinivasan film, I think it's Nadodi Katra, in which Mohanlal is just working as a peddler. He's shouting Takali, Vengayam, Chira. Okay, so just like that, you have the sound of a vendor or a peddler down in the road, just pulling his cart with which he is selling tomato, bitter gourd, vegetable, or pumpkin, or maybe most of the fruits and vegetable you see in the America or Europe. Okay, so we have the peddler crying his wares. Here it is wares. What do you mean by wares? Wares could be like vessels, pottery, glassware, okay, metal vessels, utensils, all that. പാത്രങ്ങളൊക്കെ വിൽക്കുന്ന ഒരാൾ നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിൻപുറത്ത് നമുക്ക് കേരളത്തിൽ കാണാം, തലച്ചുമടായിട്ടും വണ്ടിയിലൊക്കെ വെച്ചിട്ട് പാത്രങ്ങളും വെജിറ്റബിളും അതുപോലെ കലം ചട്ടി മുതലായ സാധനമൊക്കെ വിൽക്കുന്നത്. അങ്ങനെ സാധനങ്ങളെല്ലാം കൊണ്ടു നടന്ന് വിൽക്കുന്ന ആൾക്കാർക്ക് നമ്മൾ പറയുന്ന പേരാണ് പെഡലർ ഓർ ഈവൻ വെൻഡർ. Alright. The notes of a distant song which someone was singing reached her family faintly, reach her faintly. Faintly means not clearly, in the distance. വളരെ മൃദുവായിട്ട് bleak ആയിട്ട് കേൾക്കുന്ന faintly. And countless sparrows were twittering the eaves. Now she is looking outside. As she is looking outside, she can see the kind of freshness in the spring weather. Trees, branches, leaves and all. So also there is so much of energy and life all around. Birds, people, okay, a lot of noise, and she is looking out. Twittering is the cry of the birds and squirrels. There were patches of blue sky showing here and there through the clouds that had met and piled one above the other in the west facing her window. So when she is looking out, she can see the beautiful sky, blue sky, and she can also see the clouds, and she can see the trees and everything. Right? She sat with her head thrown back upon the cushion of the chair, quite motionless, except when a sob came up into her throat and shook her as a child who has cried itself to sleep continues to sob in its dreams. Okay, beautiful presentation. Okay, Kate Chopin, beautiful writer. Okay, അപ്പോൾ ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചതിൻ്റെ സങ്കടത്തിൽ അവർ ഇങ്ങനെ ആ കസാരയിൽ ഇരുന്ന് പുറത്തേക്ക് നോക്കിക്കൊണ്ട് ഭർത്താവിൻ്റെ വേർപാടിൽ ഇടയ്ക്കിടയ്ക്ക് ഇങ്ങനെ വിങ്ങി പൊട്ടിക്കരയുന്നുണ്ട്. പകൽ മുഴുവൻ കരഞ്ഞ അവശനായ ഒരു കുഞ്ഞ് ഉറക്കത്തിൽ പോലും വിങ്ങിപ്പൊട്ടും. അവൻ്റെ ആ വിങ്ങലിലും വിതുമ്പലിലും നെഞ്ചിങ്ങനെ മൃദുവായിട്ട് ഇളകുന്ന നമുക്ക് കാണാനായിട്ട് കഴിയും. അതേപോലെ ലൂയി മലാഡ് പുറത്തെ നീലാകാശത്തേക്ക് നോക്കി അനന്തവിഹായസത്തിലേക്കും ഇളം തെന്നലിൽ ചാഞ്ചാടുന്ന ഹരിതാപമായ വൃക്ഷലതാദികളിലേക്ക് നോക്കിക്കൊണ്ട് നെടുവീർപ്പെടുകയാണ്, സങ്കടപ്പെടുകയാണ്. ഐ ലോസ്റ്റ് മൈ ഹസ്ബൻഡ്. ഷീ ഈസ് ജസ്റ്റ് സോബിങ് നൗ ആൻഡ് ദെൻ. ഷി വാസ് യങ്. നൗ വി ഹാവ് ദി description of the appearance of Louis Mallard. He was young with a fair, calm face whose lines bespoke repression and even a certain strength. This is beautiful. This is interesting. Okay, she is young, energetic, and with fair. She's beautiful, calm face, Shandamaya Mugam. Okay, and whose lines bespoke repression. You look at her. When you look at her, you can see that her face, the lines in the face speak about repression. What is repression? Okay, repression is you have a lot of dreams, a lot of plans, wishes. നമുക്ക് ഒരുപാട് ആഗ്രഹങ്ങളും സ്വപ്നങ്ങളും പദ്ധതികളും ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ടാകും. ഓക്കെ, നമുക്ക് എന്താണ് യാത്ര ചെയ്യണം, ആഘോഷിക്കണം, ജീവിതം ആനന്ദിക്കണം. ഓക്കെ, അങ്ങനെ ഒരുപാട് സ്വപ്നങ്ങൾ നമുക്ക് ഓരോരുത്തർക്കും ഉണ്ടാകും. ഒത്തിരി ഇഷ്ടങ്ങളുണ്ടാകും, വ്യക്തിപരമായ ഇഷ്ടങ്ങൾ, കുടുംബത്തിലുള്ള ഇഷ്ടങ്ങൾ. ഓക്കെ, ഭക്ഷിക്കുവാനായിട്ട്, യാത്ര ചെയ്യുവാനായിട്ട്, ഡ്രസ് ഇടുവാനായിട്ട്, ഫ്രണ്ട്ഷിപ്പിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട്. ഓൾറൈറ്റ്, ഒരുപാട് സ്വപ്നങ്ങൾ നമുക്കുണ്ട്. ജീവിതത്തിൽ വിജയിക്കുവാനായിട്ട് നല്ല ജോലി, ശമ്പളം, ഭവനം, കാറ്. ഓൾറൈറ്റ്, ലോട്ട് ഓഫ്. അപ്പൊ ഇത്തരത്തിലുള്ള സ്വപ്നങ്ങൾ ഒന്നും സാക്ഷാത്കരിക്കപ്പെടാതെ വ്യക്തി ജീവിതത്തിലും കുടുംബ ജീവിതത്തിലും വൈവാഹിക ജീവിതത്തിലും അതുപോലെ പ്രൊഫഷണൽ ജീവിതത്തിലും ഒന്നും സ്വപ്നങ്ങൾ സാക്ഷാത്കരിക്കപ്പെടാതെ വരുമ്പോൾ നമുക്കുണ്ടാകുന്ന ആ ഒരു അതിന് നമ്മൾ പറയുന്നതാണ് റിപ്രഷൻ, സപ്രഷൻ. നമ്മളുടെ ആഗ്രഹങ്ങൾ, സ്വപ്നങ്ങൾ, പ്രതീക്ഷകൾ എല്ലാം നമ്മൾ അടിച്ചൊതുക്കും. കഴിയില്ല. ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ അവസ്ഥയിൽ എനിക്ക് കഴിയില്ല, നമുക്ക് കഴിയില്ല. ഇയാളോടൊപ്പം ജീവിച്ചാൽ ഇതൊന്നും നടക്കില്ല, ഇവളോടൊപ്പം ജീവിച്ചാൽ ഇതൊന്നും നടക്കില്ല. ഓക്കെ, അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ആ ചിന്താഗതി വേണ്ട, തൽക്കാലം ഇങ്ങനെ അങ്ങോട്ട് പോട്ടെ. ഓക്കെ, ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് റിപ്രഷൻ. ആൻഡ് ദ സെയിം യു ക്യാൻ സീ ഇൻ ദ ഫേസ് ഓഫ് ദാറ്റ് ഇഷ്യൂ യു ഹാവ് ഇൻ ദ ഫിലിം ജോജി. ജോജി എന്നുള്ള ഫിലിമിൽ ഒരുപാട് സപ്രഷനും റിപ്രഷനും എല്ലാം നമുക്ക് കാണാനായിട്ട് കഴിയും. നോക്കിയാൽ കാണാം. ഇതുപോലുള്ള ഒരു അപ്പനോടൊപ്പം ഈ കുടുംബത്തിൽ ജീവിച്ചാൽ ഒരു കാലത്തും ഗതി കിട്ടില്ല ഇയാളൊന്ന്. ഓക്കെ, ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് ദ തീം ഓഫ് ജോജി ദ ഫിലിം. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് സപ്രഷൻ, ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് റിപ്രഷൻ. സെയിം വി ഹാവ് ഇൻ ദിസ് സ്റ്റോറി ഓഫ് an hour by Kate Chopin. So look at her face. She was young with a fair, calm face whose lines bespoke repression and even a certain strength. But now there was a dull stare in her eyes. Now ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചിട്ടാണ് ഇവർ മുറി വന്നിരിക്കുന്നത്. പുറത്തേക്ക് നോക്കുമ്പോൾ ഷീ ഈസ് തിങ്കിങ്, ഓ മൈ ഗോഡ്, മൈ ഹസ്ബൻഡ് ഈസ് നോ മോർ. ഇപ്പൊ ഞാൻ എന്താണ് ശരിക്കും എൻ്റെ അവസ്ഥ? ഷീ ഈസ് തിങ്കിങ്, മൈ ഹസ്ബൻഡ് ഈസ് നോ മോർ. നൗ വാട്ട്സ് ഗോയിങ് ടു ഹാപ്പൻ? ഷുഡ് ഐ ബി അൺഹാപ്പി? വിൽ ഐ ബി ഇൻ misery? Will I be in problem? But now there was a dull stare in her eyes, whose gaze was fixed away of yonder, beyond, of yonder, one of those patches of the blue sky. Now she is looking in the blue sky. It was not a glance of reflection, but rather indicated a suspension of intelligent thought. Now an intelligent thought comes to her. She is thinking with intelligence. Now my husband is no more. Okay? And she is suspending that thought. Okay, my husband is dead. ഇനി എന്താണ്? ഒരുപാട് ഓപ്ഷൻസ് അവളുടെ മനസ്സിലുണ്ട്. പക്ഷേ ആ ചിന്തകളെ അവൾ തൽക്കാലത്തേക്ക് സസ്പെൻഡ് ചെയ്യുകയാണ്. മോശമല്ലേ? അങ്ങനെ ഒന്നും ചിന്തിക്കണ്ട. ഷീ ഈസ് ട്രൈയിങ്. നൗ വാട്ട് ഹാപ്പൻസ്? ദിസ് ഇസ് സൈക്കോളജിക്കൽ റിയലിസം. ഓക്കെ, there was something coming to her and she was waiting for it fearfully. All the possibilities after the death of her husband is just rising up like a flood in her mind. ഒരു വലിയ പ്രളയത്തിൽ എന്ന പോലെ, ഒരു പ്രളയം വന്നിട്ട് ജലം ഇങ്ങനെ ഒഴുകുന്നത് പോലെ, വെള്ളപ്പൊക്കം ഉണ്ടാകുന്ന പോലെ ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ള ശിഷ്ടകാലത്തെ ജീവിതത്തിന്റെ സാധ്യതകളെ കുറിച്ചുള്ള ഒത്തിരി സ്വപ്നങ്ങളും പ്രതീക്ഷകളും അവരുടെ മനസ്സിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ അലമാലകളായി ഉയർന്നു വരികയാണ്. റൈറ്റ്? But she felt it creeping. Yeah, what was it? She did not know. It was too subtle and elusive to name. She cannot feel it. She cannot name it. But she felt it creeping out of the sky, reaching toward her through the sounds, the scents, the color that filled the air. Now her bosom rose. Bosom is her chest. Now her bosom rose and felt tumultuously. Tumultuously is loudly. She's breathing heavily. Okay, lot of possibilities, lot of plans. She was beginning to recognize this thing that was approaching to possess her. A sense of freedom is going to possess her. Now I don't have to be under my husband anymore. I have freedom. And she was striving to beat it back with her will, as powerless as her two white slender hands would have been. Okay, so ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചതിന് ശേഷമുള്ള കാലത്തെ ജീവിതത്തെക്കുറിച്ചുള്ള ഒരുപാട് പ്രതീക്ഷകൾ അവരുടെ മനസ്സിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ ഉയർന്നു വന്ന് വല്ലാതെ അവരെ ഇങ്ങനെ സന്ദേഹിപ്പിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്, സന്തോഷിപ്പിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. അതനുസരിച്ച് അവരുടെ ഹൃദയത്തിന്റെ മിടിപ്പ് കൂടിക്കൂടി വരുന്നുണ്ട്. പക്ഷേ അവർ അവരെ തന്നെ നിയന്ത്രിക്കുവാനായിട്ടും ശ്രമിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ബട്ട് the heartbeat is just becoming louder and louder, faster and faster, and she can see, or anybody can feel, the rising and falling of her chest. We move on to page number 58, halfway through the story. When she abandoned herself, a little whispered word escaped her slightly parted lips. She said it over and over under her breath. Free, free, free. The vacant stare and the look of terror that had followed it went from her eyes. They stayed keen and bright. Her pulses beat fast, and the coursing blood warmed and relaxed every inch of her body. Now she is lonely, thinking about the rest of her life. And when she is thinking about the rest of her life after the death of her husband, she speaks to herself through the slightly parted lips. Free, free, free. ഇനി ഞാൻ സ്വതന്ത്രയാണ്. ഇനി എനിക്ക് എൻ്റെ ഇഷ്ടമുള്ള ജീവിതം നയിക്കാം. ഈ ഭർത്താവിൻ്റെ അനുവാദവും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഭർത്തൃ വീട്ടുകാരുടെ അനുവാദവും അമ്മായിയപ്പൻ്റെ അനുവാദവും ഒന്നും ചോദിച്ചു നിൽക്കേണ്ട കാര്യമില്ല. ഫ്രീ ഫ്രീ ഫ്രീ. I repeated, I said that in Malayalam because this is true in the case of many women in many families. They need not only the permission of their husbands, often they need the permission of their husband's father, their husband's mother, maybe other members of the family for anything, just to go for a shopping, just to go to get her own home, maybe to do anything, to buy, to do anything. This is marriage. This is the kind of restrictions in marriage. And now she speaks to herself, free, free, free. All right. She did not stop to ask if it were or were not a monstrous joy that held her. Now she is thinking, oh my God, my husband is dead and I am talking to myself, free, free, free. യോ, ഞാനൊന്നും ഇങ്ങനെ ചിന്തിക്കുക പോലും വയ്യ. വളരെ മോശം, ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചു കിടക്കുമ്പോൾ ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ ചിന്തിക്കാന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ. ആൻഡ് ഷീ ഈസ് സോറി അബൌട്ട് ദിസ് മോൺസ്ട്രസ് ജോയ്. ദിസ് ഈസ് എ kind of a diabolic joy, a kind of dangerous joy, evil joy. No. A clear and exalted perception enabled her to dismiss the suggestion as trivial. No. This is silly. This is trivial. I shouldn't think that way. This is bad. She did not stop to ask. Okay, she knew that she would weep again when she saw the kind, tender hands of her husband folded in death. താഴെ ചെല്ലുമ്പോൾ ഭർത്താവിൻ്റെ ബോഡി കൊണ്ടുവന്നിട്ടുണ്ടാകും. ശവമഞ്ചത്തിനകത്ത് അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ ബോഡി ഇങ്ങനെ പുതപ്പിച്ച് കിടത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ടാകും. അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ കൈകൾ രണ്ടും കൂപ്പി അതിനകത്ത് ഒരു കൊന്തയും കുരിശും ഒക്കെ വെച്ചിട്ടുള്ള രൂപം അവരുടെ മനസ്സിലേക്ക് വന്നു. അയ്യോ, അത് കാണുമ്പോൾ ഞാൻ എന്തായാലും കരഞ്ഞേ പറ്റൂ, ഭർത്താവല്ലേ. All right. So she knew that she would weep again when she saw the kind, tender hands folded in death, her husband's. The face that had never looked save with love upon her. He had always been good to her. He had always smiled at her. He had loved her. Okay? Fixed and gray and dead. After all, now he is going to be still and cold and dead. But she saw beyond that bitter moment a long procession of years to come that would belong to her absolutely. And now she thinks, yeah, hereafter I'm going to have a lot of years. She is only in her early 30s. So she has a lot of years left to enjoy for herself. And she opened and spread her arms out to them in welcome. Now she is glad that her life is long and free after the death of her husband. There would be no one to live for her during those coming years. She would live for herself. There would be no powerful will bending hers in that blind persistence with which men and women believe they have a right to impose a private will upon a fellow creature. This is marriage. This is marriage according to Kate Chopin. A kind intention or a cruel intention make the act seem no less a crime as she looked upon it in that brief moment of illumination. So what is marriage according to Kate Chopin? Marriage according to Kate Chopin is a powerful will bending hers, right? It is in fact a powerful will bending the others in that blind persistence with which men and women believe they have. Marriage is the belief that, the faith that, your belief that you have a right to impose a private will upon your partner. That is marriage. And yet she had loved him sometimes. Often she had not. What did it matter? What could love, the unsolved mystery, count for in face of this possession of self-assertion, which she suddenly recognized as the strongest impulse of her being? Okay, there were problems, there was happiness There was, of course, joy. There was, of course, anguish and worry in the marriage. She is thinking about all that. Free, free, body and soul free. She kept whispering, okay, now my body is free, my soul is free, my husband is not going to control me anymore. Josephine. Now another scene, her sister is coming to Louis Mallard's room. Josephine was kneeling before the closed door with her lips to the keyhole, imploring for admission. So Josephine, the sister of Louis, is knocking on the door of Louis. Sister, please open. Please open. Please come down. Come out. The body is brought to home. Come down. Come and see. Be with your husband's body. Louis, open the door. I beg, open the door. You will make yourself ill. നിങ്ങൾ തന്നെ ഇരുന്നിട്ട് ആകപ്പാടെ രോഗം ആകും. Please come down. What are you doing, Louis? Please, heaven's sake, open the door. Sister, please open the door. Don't just punish yourself. Come out. Go away. I'm not making myself ill. നീ ഒന്ന് പോ. എനിക്കിതൊരു പ്രശ്നമൊന്നുമല്ല. Okay, so Louis Mallard is right. Go away. I'm not making myself ill. I have no problem. No, she was drinking in a very elixir of life through that open door. Now look at this. This is the happiness. Kate Chopin very effectively shows the happiness of Louis Mallard at the death of her husband, Brenly Mallard. She was drinking in a very elixir of life through the open window. തുറന്നു കിടന്ന ആ ജനവാതിലുകളിലൂടെ പുറത്തേക്ക് നോക്കി ജീവിതത്തിന്റെ അമൃതിന്റെ ആ ഒരു സുന്ദരം ആയിട്ടുള്ള അനുഭവം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ജീവാമൃതത്തിന്റെ അനന്തമായിട്ടുള്ള രസം ആ സാധ്യതകൾ അവൾ അനുഭവിക്കുകയായിരുന്നു, നുകരുകയായിരുന്നു. She was drinking in a very elixir, okay, elixir of life through that open window. Her fancy was running riot. Her fancy, what is fancy? Imagination. Oh, I am free now. My husband is dead. Lot of possibilities. I will control the family income. I can travel. I can make friends. I can do anything I like. I can buy any dress. All right. Yeah, her fancy was running riot. Running riot means fancy. Running riot means വളരെ എന്താണ് സ്വതന്ത്രമായിട്ട് ആക്രാന്തമായിട്ട് ചിന്തിക്കുക. ചിന്ത എത്രമാത്രം ചിന്തിച്ചു കൂട്ടാമോ അത്രമാത്രം ചിന്തിച്ച് ആഹ്ലാദിക്കുന്നതിനെ, ചിന്തിച്ച് ആക്രാന്തപ്പെടുന്നതിനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ റണ്ണിങ് റയറ്റ്, ഫാൻസി റണ്ണിങ് റയറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഫാൻസി ഈസ് ഇമാജിനേഷൻ, തോട്ട്. റണ്ണിങ് റയറ്റ്, ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് ജസ്റ്റ് ലൈക്ക് നമ്മൾ ബാംഗ്ലൂർ ഡേയ്സിൽ ഞാൻ ആദ്യം പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ, നമ്മുടെ കൽപ്പന വിജയരാഘവൻ അപ്രത്യക്ഷമായി കഴിയുമ്പോൾ ശ്വാസമുട്ടെല്ലാം മാറുന്നുണ്ട്. അതേപോലെ ഭർത്താവിൽ നിന്നും വിടുതൽ കിട്ടുന്ന ഭാര്യയുടെ ഒരു ചിന്താധാരകളാണ് ഫാൻസി വാസ് റണ്ണിങ് റയറ്റ് എന്നിവിടെ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുക. Spring days and summer days and all sorts of days that would be her own. She breathed a quick prayer that life might be long. Okay, ഇനിയോ അതിയാനോ പോയി, എൻ്റെ ദൈവമേ, ഇനി എനിക്കൊരു 19 കൊല്ലം ജീവിക്കാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യത്തോടു കൂടി ജീവിക്കാമായിരുന്നു. She breathed a quick prayer that life might be long. It was only yesterday she had thought with a shudder that life might be long. So yesterday she thought that life might be long. Look at that. Why? What was the condition yesterday? Yesterday she was with her husband and she thought, oh my God, ഇയാളെ ഈ പണ്ടാരക്കാലന്റെ കൂടെ ജീവിതകാലം മുഴുവൻ ജീവിക്കണല്ലോ, ദൈവമേ എന്നെ അങ്ങ് വിളിച്ചേ. ഇന്ന് അദ്ദേഹം മരിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ അവർ പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയാണ്, എൻ്റെ ദൈവമേ ഈ പണ്ടാരക്കാലം ചത്തു, ഇനി എനിക്കെങ്കിലും ഒരു 5-6 കൊല്ലം അല്ല ഒരു 10-60 കൊല്ലം ജീവിക്കാൻ പറ്റിയായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ. This is psychological realism. This is psychological realism. Look at that. Look at that. Wonderful. She breathed a quick prayer that life might be long. It was only yesterday she had thought with a shudder that life might be long. Beautiful story by Kate Chopin about marriage, happiness, pain, problem, disappointment, tension, worry in marriage, suppression, oppression in marriage. She arose at length and opened the door to her sister's importunities. Importunities is pleading. Please open, my dear sister. That is pleading, importunities. Now Louis Mallard opens the door. There was a feverish triumph in her eyes. Okay, now look at the eyes of Louis Mallard. You can see some kind of happiness. That is feverish triumph in her eyes. And she carried herself unintentionally. So Louis Mallard, wife, is just coming out without any intention, like a goddess of victory. Yeah, she is victorious now. Husband is dead. Successful now. Husband is no more. She clasped her sister's waist. ജോസഫൈൻ അടുത്ത് വന്നപ്പോൾ ജോസഫൈൻ്റെ അരയോട് കൈകൾ ചേർത്ത് താങ്ങി പിടിച്ച് താഴോട്ട് പോവുകയാണ്. And together they descended the stairs. Stair ഇറങ്ങി താഴോട്ട് പോവുകയാണ്. Richard stood waiting for them at the bottom. What's happening down there? Down there, Richard Mallard. No, Richard, the friend is, yeah, Brindley's friend is waiting down there. Okay? And now Josephine and Louis' friend is Richard. Someone was opening the front door with a latch key. Front door is open. It was Brindley Mallard who entered. Now the door is open and Brindley Mallard, Louis Mallard's husband, is entering. What happened? My God. Okay. Who entered, a little travel stain, tired of travel, composedly carrying his grip sack and umbrella. There's a bag with him, there's an umbrella. He had been far from the scene of accident and did not know there had been one. He stood amazed at Josephine's piercing cry. Josephine, Louis' sister, is crying at the sight of Brindley. ട്രെയിൻ ആക്സിഡന്റിൽ മരിച്ചുപോയി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ലൂയിയുടെ ഭർത്താവ് ബ്രെൻഡ്ലി അതാ വാതിൽ തുറന്ന് കയറി വരികയാണ്. ജോസഫൈൻ സഹോദരി ഭർത്താവ് കടന്നു വരുന്ന കണ്ടിട്ട് ഷോക്ക് ഏറ്റതുപോലെ വലിയ വായിൽ കരയുകയാണ്. റിച്ചർഡ് പക്ഷേ ആക്സിഡന്റ് സ്ഥലത്ത് റിച്ചർഡ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല. അയാൾ ആക്സിഡന്റ് ഇല്ലായിരുന്നു. തെറ്റായ വിവരമാണ് പത്രം നൽകിയത്. തെറ്റായ വിവരമാണ് റിച്ചർഡ് കൊണ്ടുവന്നത്. ലൂയി മല്ലാർഡിന്റെ ഭർത്താവ് ബ്രെൻഡ്ലി മല്ലാർഡ് മരിച്ചിട്ടില്ലായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോ നമുക്ക് നോക്കാം, സ്വന്തം ഭർത്താവ് മരിച്ചെന്ന് വിചാരിച്ച ഭർത്താവ് ജീവനോടെ തിരിച്ചു വരുമ്പോൾ ഈ ഭാര്യ എങ്ങനെ പ്രതികരിക്കുന്നുവെന്ന്. Now he had been far from the scene of accident and did not even know there had been one accident. He stood amazed at Josephine's piercing cry, at Richard's quick motion to screen him from the view of his wife. And Richard is trying to cover Brindley. Why? Because Louis is a cardiac patient, heart patient. So മരിച്ചെന്ന ഭർത്താവിനെ പെട്ടെന്ന് മുമ്പിൽ കാണുമ്പോൾ അവരെങ്ങാനും സന്തോഷം കൊണ്ട് ഹാർട്ട് അറ്റാക്ക് വന്നാലോ? Let us see what happens. But Richards was too late. റിച്ചർഡ്സിന് ബ്രെൻഡിലിനെ മറയ്ക്കുന്നതിന് മുമ്പേ ലൂയി സ്വന്തം ഭർത്താവ് തൻ്റെ മുമ്പിൽ നിൽക്കുന്നത് കാണുകയാണ്. When the doctors came, what happened? She collapsed. She had a cardiac arrest. She fell down. She died. When the doctors came, they said she had died of heart disease, of joy that kills. Look at that irony in the last phrase, joy that kills. ഡോക്ടർമാർ വന്നു, ലൂയി മല്ലാർഡിനെ പരിശോധിച്ചു നോക്കി. അവർ പറഞ്ഞു അവർ മരിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നു. സന്തോഷാധിക്യത്താൽ ഹൃദയസ്തംഭനം വന്ന് അവർ മരിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നു. കഥ വായിച്ച നമുക്കും കഥ എഴുതിയ കേറ്റ് ചോപ്പിനും അറിയാം അവർ മരിച്ചത് സന്തോഷം കൊണ്ടല്ല. ഈ പണ്ടാരക്കാലം തിരിച്ചു വന്നല്ലോ, എൻ്റെ ദൈവമേ ഇനി ഞാൻ ഇയാളുടെ കൂടെ ജീവിക്കണമല്ലോ എന്ന് വിചാരിച്ചിട്ട് ആണ് അവർ മരിച്ചത് എന്ന് നമുക്കറിയാം. So that is the beautiful story of an hour. All this is taking place in 1 hour. That's why it is story of an hour by Kate Chopin. Now we will discuss the questions. Okay, please come to page number 59. Let us just discuss the questions. So I hope you, my dear students, I hope you understood the story of an hour by Kate Chopin. It's a wonderful story about man-woman relationship in marriage, husband-wife relationship in marriage. It's about suppression, oppression, disappointment, dreams in marriage, and it is about the feelings of a wife towards a husband, feelings of maybe a husband towards a wife, and of course, Kate Chopin is just very vividly representing the feelings of rather the reality of marriage in the story of an hour. Now we will come to first question, page number 59. In which magazine was the story of an hour originally published? Answer is option A, Vogue. The story is originally published in Vogue magazine. Question number 2. Who told Mrs. Mallard of her husband's death in veiled hints? What is veiled hints? വെട്ടി തുറന്ന് പറയാതെ വളരെ വ്യംഗ്യമായി ഇൻഡയറക്റ്റ് ആയി ഒരു കാര്യം അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിനാണ് വെയിൽഡ്. വെയിൽ നമുക്കറിയാമല്ലോ, നമ്മള് മുഖാവരണത്തിനാണ്, മുഖം മൂടി വെക്കുന്നതിനാണ് വെയിൽ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. നവവധുവിന്റെ വെയിൽ നമുക്കറിയാം. സോ വെട്ടി തുറന്ന് പറയാതെ ഇൻഡയറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിനാണ് വെയിൽഡ് hints എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So who told Mrs. Mallard of her husband's death in veiled hints? Okay, so the answer is her sister Josephine. Her sister Josephine told Louis Mallard that her husband Brenly Mallard died in the railroad disaster. Question number 3. What was the original title of the story of an hour? The answer is the original title of the story was The Dream of an Hour. The Dream of an Hour. Later, Kate Chopin changed it into The Story of an Hour. Question number 4. Who was Mr. Richards? Mr. Richards was the friend of Louis Mallard's husband. Repeat, Mr. Richards was the friend of Louis Mallard's husband. Now we come to short questions. First question. Why was great care taken in breaking the news of her husband to Mrs. Mallard? Okay, answer. Great care was taken in breaking the news of her husband to Mrs. Mallard because Mrs. Mallard was a heart patient and she could just have some cardiac arrest if she is told something very painful like the death of her husband. Next question. What was Mrs. Mallard's immediate reaction when she heard the news of her husband's death? Okay, Mrs. Mallard wept at once and fell into the hands of her sister Josephine when she was told about her husband's death. Question number 3. How was the outside world described after Mrs. Mallard heard the news of her husband's death? Okay, so we have a scene from the room of Mrs. Mallard after she is informed that Brenly Mallard, her husband, is no more. She is sitting in her armchair and she is looking out through the window. Out in the air, she can see the top of the trees. She can see the blue sky, and we understand that it did rain the previous day, and we understand that the green leaves and trees are in springtime, and this is in fact an indication of a bright weather, and this is foreshadowing the prospects of a spinster's life to Louis Mallard. And now that her husband is dead, she has a lot of freedom and she can have more happiness. That is just foreshadowed by the description of the spring weather and vibrant vegetation outside. Now we come to the next question. Comment on the symbol of the open window. Open window is a symbol. It is an image. And what is it symbolizing? It is symbolizing freedom. In Malayalam, you have a quotation like Bandura Kanjana Kutilanangilum Banduram Bandanam Bandanam Tannevari. Okay, Sorna Kutilanangilum ഒരു കിളിയെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് ബന്ധനമാണ്. Now and a bird is looking out from the nest. Similarly, this lady is just looking out to the window, and the window is an image for freedom, independence. Okay, that is window as open window as a symbol. Next question: which were the words whispered by her when she sat herself? When Louis Mallard sat to herself, she uttered free, free, free. All right. Next question: how did Bentley Mallard escape the railroad accident? Bentley Mallard escaped the rail accident because he was not in the train. He was nowhere near the place where the accident took place. He was far away from the scene of the accident, and it was a wrong news that he died. He, in fact, did not die. He was in a safe place. Next question: what is the climax of the story of an hour? Okay, the climax of the story of an hour is the appearance of Brenly Mallard at the end of the story. Everybody, Josephine, Richard, Louis Mallard, and all the members of the family, people in the neighborhood, thought that Brenly Mallard died. But at the end of the story, he comes back. And that is the climax or even the anticlimax of the story of an hour. Next question: explain. She had died of heart disease of joy that kills. Okay, and end of the story, Louis Mallard saw her husband Richard Mallard live. Okay, she thought that he was dead. She thought that maybe she has a lot of independence after the death of her husband. But when Brenly Mallard is back, she is shocked. She is shocked. It is not a shock that comes from joy, because we know what is in the mind of Louis Mallard. She is happy that her husband is dead. That is marriage. That's reality. She is happy. She could be free now. Okay. And when she at last knew that, oh my God, I can't be free, my husband is still alive, she has a cardiac arrest. And doctors say that this is society. Doctors are representing society. Conventionally, society wants a wife to be sad when her husband is dead. And doctors said that, yeah, Louis Mallard died because it was joy that kills. She is in fact happy that her husband has come back from death. Okay, that is it. But we know that she is dying of sorrow, sorrow that is resulting from the life or returning of her husband. Right. Next question, paragraph question: the treatment of gender in the story of an hour. Okay, story of an hour of Kate Chopin is about gender. That is man, woman relationship. It's about marriage. It's about how a wife experience, or the experience of a wife in marriage, or it's about the life of husband and wife in marriage. And we understand that the heroine in this story, Louis Mallard, was unhappy in this marriage. And when her husband is dead, she is happy. She says, free, free, free at last. She has a lot of plans for the rest of her life. And it is very obvious that the gender roles, gender issues, husband, wife, son, daughter, sister, mother, such roles are discussed in the story of an hour. Chopin's treatment of marriage and family. This story is a very, very successful treatment of marriage and family. Marriage is often a bondage. Marriage is often slavery. Family is often slavery. Yeah. A husband, because he is tied to, maybe he is tied to, or rather a wife, she is tied to. Maybe a wife is tied to the husband. A husband is tied to the wife. Okay. Similarly, all the members of the family are tied down. Yeah. A parent, mother or father, they cannot just go away. They cannot just do whatever they like just because they have children. So it's about family. It's about marriage. It's about the problems of marriage. It's about the problems of family. Okay, it is how marriage is restraining our independence. It is how marriage or family is restraining our freedom. And okay, it's about the possibilities of being a spinster, being a bachelor, being a free man or a free woman. Next question, the character of Louis Mallard. Yeah, the character of Louis Mallard is very, very clearly represented here. She is young, beautiful, smart, and of course, we know that she is, of course, a good lady. Everybody thinks that she is an ideal wife. Everybody thinks that, even her husband thinks that she loves him. People think that she is a very loving wife. Josephine, Richard, everybody, they're very eager, they're very careful to pass the message to her, because when she knows that her husband is dead, she can have a cardiac arrest. So we understand that she tried her best to live a life according to the norms of the society. That's why she is presented such a way that she's suffering from so much of pain. But we know, we don't know, maybe only psychologists know what is in the mind of every individual. Okay, maybe there is real love, maybe there is real affection deep in our heart, but how can you know that? Nobody knows that. And Kate Chopin, the story is a story that presents psychological realism, and we understand that she has happiness when she is liberated from the institution of marriage. So we cannot blame her. We cannot blame her. We cannot say that her character is bad. No, we cannot say that. So, in fact, Louis Mallard is presented in the story as a normal lady, a normal young lady, a normal wife. Yeah, she was loyal, loving, considerate, careful to her husband. Even at the moment of her of the death of her husband, she is, of course, an ideal wife. But she thinks about all the possibilities of future. That's normal. That's normal. Like a lot of thoughts come to our mind. Yeah, and we understand that she has a conscience which is, of course, morally stable, an ethical conscience, and she lived her life based on the ethical consciousness till now, and hereafter again she will live a life based on her ethical consciousness, her moral consciousness, and we will say that, readers will say that, of course, the character of Louis Mallard is ideal and good. But of course, often marriage is an institution that is just curbing, or rather restraining, our independence. But we know humanity has to continue. The life has to continue. Human civilization has to continue. So marriages will take place. Otherwise, there is not going to be maybe men and women, children. So it will always be there. It's a universal reality. It's a universal fact. Now we come to the next question. The thought that flashed through the mind of Mrs. Mallard after realizing her husband's death. Okay, she thinks of being free. She thinks of living a free life, and she's happy about it. And she understands that she could enjoy her life afterwards. So, yeah. And this is, in fact, the criticism of Kate Chopin. We have a lot of reasons for Kate Chopin to write this story this way, because she lost her father when she was young. She lost her husband when she was very young, Kate Chopin, and she had 6 children. She had to look after her mother. She had to look after her grandmother. Okay, and life is miserable to Kate Chopin. So there is nothing wrong in presenting a story like this. Now we have the next question. comment on the climax of the story of an hour. The climax of the story of an hour is, of course, the returning of Brenly Mallard and the sudden death of Louis Mallard. Okay, a wonderful story that presents right. Textual question, very textual question. Now we come to essay questions, two essay questions. Kate Chopin's story of an hour is an attempt to highlight the inherent oppressiveness of marriage discourse. Right, inherent, permanent, it's always there, oppressiveness, adichamartal. Marriage is oppressive. Marriage is suppressive. Marriage is oppression. Marriage is suppressive. It oppresses the individual. It oppresses the husband. It oppresses the wife. Okay, it oppresses maybe children. It oppresses people in the family. So that is very, very vividly presented in the story of an hour. Okay, and the next question, you can write, of course, an answer based on the text. I gave a lot of explanation. Now we come to the next question. Kate Chopin's The Story of an Hour deals with forbidden joy of independence. Elucidate. Okay, yeah, maybe it's difficult to agree with forbidden joy of independence. Okay, so the story is about, of course, independence, but we don't know whether it is about forbidden joy of independence. Maybe it's relative. Okay, so this story is about independence you get when you are single. That's true. This story of an hour is about the kind of freedom and the joy you get when you lead the life of a bachelor, a spinster, a single. As a single, you are free. As a bachelor, you are free. As a spinster, you are free. So, of course, this story is about the independence, the joy of independence, but forbidden joy of independence. There is nothing like forbidden joy. Okay. There is what is called, in the Bible, you read about the forbidden fruit. Vilakapatta kani. So, can we say that there is forbidden joy in the world? Maybe some joys could be forbidden to some people. But we can't say that all joy is, or all joys are forbidden joys. No. Because joy may be permitted and forbidden differs from person to person. Maybe drinking liquor is forbidden to some people. It's, of course, injurious to health, but people drink. Smoking is injurious. People smoke. Okay. Then, personal life, like extramarital relationship, sex and all. Okay. Maybe religious people, if you are very religious, it is said that, of course, it is forbidden. Extramarital relationship, thinking bad about others, lustful thoughts, all this is forbidden in religion. But to a person who doesn't care for religion, to a person who doesn't care for such things, of course, is it forbidden? No. So forbidden joy is relative. It differs from person to person. But we can say that Story of an Hour deals with joy of independence. Forbidden, left to, of course, readers, left to each of you. But I wouldn't say it is about forbidden joy. It's about joy of independence, the kind of joy you get when you are free. And everybody wishes to be free. Okay, everybody wishes to be free. So Kate Chopin also wishes to be free. All right. So with that, we come to the end of this story. And thanks a lot for listening. Please ask your friends to watch this video. Tell your friends in UG courses, undergraduate courses in the colleges of the University of Calicut to watch the program if they do not get proper class and all. And watch the lecture, understand the chapter, write down the questions and answers, study very well, and ensure that you have a wonderful score, and ensure that you accomplish all your dreams. Have a wonderful afternoon. May God bless you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Sandra, for your response here. So I request you, if you find this lecture useful, you can like it, you can comment, you can ask your friends to subscribe. Please subscribe my channel. I'll be there all the time. Every day I'll be streaming, of course, discourses, lectures on many topics, right? Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. God bless.